CUSIP, or the Committee on Uniform Securities Identification Procedures. Give us a little bit about CUSIP, Cash.
Jim, we talked in 2008, as the economy was faltering, there was a mass movement into precious metals, and this was record territory. We had never seen such an appetite for gold and silver since the 1980s when Nixon put it back on the streets. You know, President Nixon thought he was doing something when he released gold, or took us off the gold standard and essentially closed the gold window, or the trading window for gold. And he felt that by putting it out on the streets, making it available to the public, that the prices would decline. He misestimated the demand, the appetite that the public had for real money. And we had the same thing happen in 2008. In 2008, the dollar was faltering. It had dropped, and I've talked about that before. The dollar went down to 72 points in its basket against its basket of currencies. It was almost the death knell for the dollar. Well, banks were unprepared for it. They didn't expect the appetite for solid, sound money. And in this case, Americans were turning to bullion gold, bullion silver. A lot of people bought junk silver, which is bags of old pre-1964 silver half dollars, quarters, dimes, and nickels. They were buying it in droves.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm looking at the list here. Junk bags are on the CUSIP list.
They are.
Also, I've got gold American Eagles. I've got Krugerrands, Maple Leaves.
Well, this CUSIP list that you're talking about, at the end of the day, here's what happened. When the government saw that Americans were willing to trade their greenbacks for alternative currency, something solid of value, they realized that the demand for gold and silver was tremendous. Now, we talked about on this show, Jim, Donald Trump is in favor of a gold standard.
He certainly
has come
is.
out and said it publicly.
But his big question was, who's got the gold?
Well, the American people have the gold, don't they, Jim? They've got it in the form of Krugerrands,
right, yeah.
Maple Leafs, American Eagles.
Wait a minute, American Eagle, 7M5331AA6.
It sounds like an inmate, doesn't
It
it?
certainly does. Report for duty.
Guess who's the prisoner?
The holder.
Because at the end of the day, Jim, these metals have been listed for easy identification and recall in preparation for a gold standard.
This is the recall list, isn't it?
That's exactly right. We can see it. Jim, every bullion product is listed. There are 93 products on this list.
Every one. They haven't missed one, did they?
Well, there are several products, Jim, that are not on the list.
Pre-1933 U.S. gold, I see, is
Well,
on the list,
numismatics
right?
are not on the list. That's
Right.
correct. But, you know, you don't have to turn to numismatics. And a lot of people are not interested in becoming collectors. And that's not what this is about. This is about the ability to hold on to metals under a gold confiscation. Jim, recall in 1933, when the bullion was taken away from the American public, there was an exemption clause. Heads of state, governments, and wealthy individuals took full advantage because they owned gold during that period when the average American couldn't. As we talked about, when Warren Buffett buys stocks, he goes in one door, we go in the other.
He goes in the preferred door, and we come out the common back door, right?
That's exactly right. And it's
Yeah.
the same thing with the gold standard. When you're on a gold standard, there are metals that can be retained. People can hold on to certain metals. You know, they should contact GSI Exchange and request the CUSIP list. Become informed, because if you're holding bags of silver, if you're holding American Eagles, Krugerrands, Maple Leafs, you're going to want to know that these metals cannot be retained under a gold act. If we go back on the gold standard, and there are several bills out there right now calling for the dollar to be defined by a fixed weight of gold, and we've talked about it. If we go on that standard, Jim, people who are holding common bullion won't be able to hold it.
You know, again, we're in the meltdown of the fiat world, the pretend world.
Yes.
And with the pretend world, the real valuable assets for 5,000 years are starting to shine. And
Jim, this world is changing. It's changing fast. And you know, there are big obstacles that are coming our way. You know, at the top of the show, we talked about Deutsche Bank's failure. I've got a clip, Jim, of what happens when banks fail.
Yeah, let's go to that.
I have some news for you, folks. I was just talking to old man Potter, and he's guaranteed cash payments to the bank. The bank's going to reopen next week.
But, George, I got my money here. Did he guarantee this place?
Well, no, Charlie, I didn't even ask him. We don't need Potter over here.
And I'll take mine now.
No, but you're thinking of this place all wrong, as if I had the money back in a safe. The money's not here. Well, your money's in Joe's house. That's right next to yours. And in the Kennedy house, and Mrs. Maitland's house, and 100 others. You're lending them the money to build, and then they're going to pay it back to you as best they can. Now, what are you going to do, foreclose on them?
I got $242 in here, and $242 isn't going to break anybody.
Okay, Tom. All right. Here you are. You sign this. You get your money in 60 days.
60 days?
You know, that clip comes from It's a Wonderful Life. These bank runs were real. And what we have right now, Jim, that's threatening us is the Money Market Reform Act. And people don't realize that if they go to the bank, even right now, you try to take out more than $5,000. In fact, it's $3,000. And you talked about it once, Jim, where you talked about the
suspicious activity report.
Yes.
That used to be when I used to go to the bank and get $10,000 in cash out. There was a currency transaction report filed, and that was $10,000, more than $10,000 in cash, or more than $10,000 out in cash was a currency transaction report, and then it morphed into the suspicious activity report. And I recommend that people Google that and familiarize themselves. This isn't some hyperbole we're cooking up here. This is the law. And a lot of these laws, if it weren't for the Freedom of Information Act, you know, people wouldn't even know exist that are on the books to totally take their pants down, turn them around, and give them the spanking they don't deserve, man.
You know, Jim, what's suspicious about pulling your money out of the bank? You know, there's nothing illegal about spending $1 million in cash. Nothing at all. But you pull out $10,000 and now you've got a suspicious activity report. You're made to feel like a criminal, like you're doing something wrong with your own money. We recommend putting your money into physical, tangible assets, gold and silver, God's money, real money.
And lock it up.
Hang on to it, because the day is coming where the greenback will no longer stand. And whether we go to a cryptocurrency, a universal currency, or whatever it's going to be, taxes are going to be collected. Banks are going to collect their interest on loans. And, Jim, at the end of the day, money will still have value. It just may not be a greenback.
The metal's not on the CUSIP list.
Yes, Jim. There's a whole series on those that are great products, and you know what? They outperform the market. GSI offers a whole list of products that are not on the CUSIP list. You know, and these are products that we recommend every American should have. Jim, it is of the utmost importance to protect your money, and we all can agree on that. At the end of the day, if you're in dollar-denominated assets, you won't hold on to them. If you're holding metals that are on a CUSIP list, and call GSI Exchange to get the CUSIP list.
My first feeling about Trump and the recall of gold and all that all together, it didn't make sense because I felt Trump is really out for the American people, but also I felt that the banks wouldn't allow it. But you know what? With the banks moving on gold, with them naming it Tier 1 currency, with the gold ownership in America being at a record low, I mean, you're talking, what, 2% of Americans own gold and 70% of Germans do?
Jim, I don't want to sound un-American or anything like that, but I'll tell you, the government doesn't run the country. The banks do.
You betcha they do. And that's why that gold's going back. It did in 1933, and it'll go back to the banks then. They've got most of it now. That's why we've got the ratio so high. We've got 92 ounces of silver to buy an ounce of gold. That shows institutional money coming hard into this metal, into gold right now.
Jim, our listeners need to call GSI Exchange and get the CUSIP list. Find out if the metals that you own have been listed for easy identification and recall.
Thanks, you, Cash. I want to thank you again. It's great always being with you, man. And on behalf of myself, Jim LaFave, thank you so much, the American people. And I do pledge allegiance to this country, the flag. I love it. On the American Confidant.
GSI Exchange, a leading precious metals dealer helping to protect your retirement accounts and delivering precious metals straight to your door. Contact GSI Exchange at 800-474-9159 or visit them on the web at gsiexchange.com.